We just got a brand new TV spot for The Mandalorian Season 3, and there is one shot that has everyone talking, a green, lush planet with Mandalore-style domes and cities, and a lot of fans are wondering if this is Mandalore in a flashback to thousands of years ago. I'm gonna say no. Sabine Wren did say in Rebels that the planet was once covered in grass, so you cannot blame fans for wondering if this is Mandalore before the wars. Well, the answer is no, because if you look closely, you can see Bo-Katan's ship, the Gauntlet, so this must be the current timeline, and before you wonder if this is during the Clone Wars, Mandalore has not looked like this in a very long time. My guess is that this is an outpost or a separate planet within the Mandalore system that Bo-Katan is using as her base. Maybe where her throne is, maybe it's Kavala or Concordia, or a new planet altogether. My guess is Kavala because that was the homeworld of House Kryze, the birthplace of the late Duchess Satine, and despite this being present day, I'm still keeping my fingers crossed for other flashbacks. During this time following the purge of Mandalore, the homeworld is destroyed. As we saw in the first trailer, the dome of Sundari was in ruins, but going to surrounding planets in the Mandalore system is going to be amazing for world building. It looks visually spectacular. In this new teaser, we also have this shot of Din talking with the armourer, and if you look really closely, you can see that Bo-Katan is also in the room. This seems to confirm a lot of the leaks and rumours, that while at first Bo and Din are antagonistic to one another, they do team up for the greater good of Mandalore. The Darksaber becomes secondary. And an interaction between Emily Swallow's character and Bo-Katan is something that fans have wanted since Season 2, but also since the Book of Boba Fett, when the armourer recounted the Night of 1,000 Tears, and blamed House Kryze and Bo-Katan herself for losing sight of the way. I wonder if during Bo's time with Death Watch, she knew the armourer. We know so little about the armourer's past. My theory is that the tribe was an extremist group that branched out from a more moderate faction in order to preserve Mandalorian identity. But there's also fans who hold on to the theory that the armourer was once a more loyalist. Could she have been Rook cast? But this interaction in this frame is going to be fascinating, because while Din is the one who's going to Mandalore to atone for his sins, Bo-Katan, in her own way, also has a redemption story to undergo if she's to be trusted again by the other clans. Many still perceive her as the cause of Mandalore's downfall. Losing the Darksaber to Moff Gideon, whether he stole it or it was in combat, is a personal demon for her. When Din Djarin came out victorious with the weapon in Chapter 16, after defeating Moff Gideon, she was absolutely heartbroken. In many ways at this stage, despite wielding the Darksaber which gives him a right to the throne, he has no interest in ruling Mandalore. That could change in Season 3, but in either case Bo-Katan knew better than to be handed the Darksaber for a second time, without winning it in combat. But as we spoke about when we covered the Making Star Wars reports, there is something in Season 3 much more important than the Darksaber. It's not too late for Bo-Katan to rule Mandalore again. And despite what House Vizsla say, she doesn't need the legendary weapon. That can stay with Din. I truly believe that by the end of the season, she's going to come out a hero. Also, in this TV spot, we have Din Djarin searching for the mines of Mandalore, but this shot to me looks like the ruins of the Undercity of Sundari. What's left of it? There are a few other frames, but those which I just broke down are the main ones. In the scene with Din, Bo-Katan and the armourer, Grogu lets out an adorable squeak, which some fans have argued is him saying the word yep, but I think it's just baby noises. Here's a question for you, let me know in the comments down below. Will Grogu speak his first words in Season 3? Honestly, I don't think so. I'm not convinced that's what they're going for just yet. It will certainly come eventually, but right now, a word or two at the very most, but he won't be reciting Shakespeare anytime soon. I don't think so. Season 3 is now just 2 days away. This is the week. I know we also have the Bad Batch Season 2 Episode 11, Metamorphosis, which we will be speaking about, but just to let you guys know, the priority in upcoming videos is going to be The Mandalorian. All we know so far about The Mandalorian Season 3 Episode 1 Chapter 17 is that it's being directed by Rick Famuyiwa. It's rumoured to be 35 minutes in length, and it features Navarro. Jon Favreau also said a bit of time has passed between the Book of Boba Fett finale and this episode. That is all we know so far, and one thing I'm very hopeful for is a surprise at the end of the episode. Both season premieres so far have had a surprise right at the end. For Season 1 it was Grogu, and for Season 2 it was Boba Fett's return. We were so pumped as a fandom that Boba Fett was back. He was in his Tusken attire and was ready to follow Din to Tython to reclaim his armour, which Cobb Vanth took from the Jawas. And of course we got the entire context in the Book of Boba Fett. But I love those moments at the end. Could we have another one in this episode? Maybe Moff Gideon alien in prison, waking up ready to escape, maybe some Snoke clones, or simply Bo-Katan looking out her window, I would wager they're gonna do something like that again. Something that really gets the fandom talking. They know how important that first episode needs to be, how hard it needs to hit. Book of Boba Fett aside, we haven't had The Mandalorian in 3 years. I can't even begin to explain how excited I am. And season 3, as Pedro Pascal teased in the past, is going to be very heavy on the Mandalore-centric lore. And my theory is that a key component of that is going to be Christopher Lloyd's character. He's said to be an old Mandalorian chieftain, and I think he could be the key to revealing a lot of flashbacks. Maybe at one point, he was one of the Mandalorians that was a Jester Real loyalist, a journeyman protector, and that could tie into Jango's backstory, and by extension, another connection to Boba Fett. Lots of flashbacks could happen if Mandalorians like Christopher Lloyd's character tell stories of the past. That could be an awesome plot device by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, using these characters as a means of giving us some background to the planet of Mandalore, especially for those fans who didn't see the Clone Wars or Rebels. So that's an aspect to bear in mind as well. In other Mandalorian news, Pedro Pascal gave an interview with Digital Spy where he revealed there's going to be a shift in the power dynamic in Season 3, specifically concerning Grogu. Digital Spy asked him, "Can you speak a bit more specifically about how that dynamic with Grogu post-Book of Boba Fett is changing?" And he said the following: "In terms of what was instantly relatable within the relationship, it doesn't limit itself to that kind of immediate charm, if that makes sense. The show introduced something that we fell in love with so quickly, but then there's just so much more to do with it and explore, different levels of that relationship, that bond, growing stronger and there being more conflict, and a shift in the power dynamic, not power over one another, but who needs what from each other in which instance. So basically, they're gonna lean on each other a lot more." And so now, my dear friends, Disney say they're aiming to reduce the budgets of Marvel and Star Wars shows. This could be very, very bad news, unless it's just being a bit more smart about what aspects of production the money goes towards. After Disney's recent Q1 earnings call, Disney CEO Bob Iger spoke about the company's previous missteps in relation to pricing, chasing Disney Plus subscriptions, and reducing overall costs. Iger emphasized the marquee brands and franchises under Disney. Pixar, Marvel and Star Wars were all mentioned. And while discussing them, he said they have to be better with their budgets, better at the financial side of things. Now evidently the aim of this is to generate more profit, and in the so-called streaming wars, they want to significantly increase the number of subscribers. The Mandalorian Season 3 is definitely going to do that, because you do have a lot of fans who stay for The Mandalorian, they don't stay for the other content so they cancel their subscription and then come back when the next season is out. But aside from subscriptions, they want to cut costs on production. So there you have it, guys, all of the latest news from the galaxy far, far away. And just before I go, I want to plug my Patreon, where, as you might be aware, I do live streams discussing the latest Star Wars content, as well as tons of other exclusives like interviews, my podcast and more. But otherwise, guys, we are so close to talking about The Mandalorian again. We're gonna have lots of conversations. You're gonna see tons and tons of videos from me. It's gonna be a very fun time. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. But until the next one, guys, may the Force be with you always.